tonight, on behalf of Apogee Electronics, Vintage King Audio, and Mix Magazine, we are very pleased to bring you Bob Clearmountain and Chris Lord-Alge, Deconstructed. Yeah. Tonight's moderator is Tom Kenny, editor of Mix Magazine. But first, we'd like to show you this to get started.
This is where it all happened. This is where the first room that he designed and he worked with them, which is a fact kind of unknown.
It's really about the process. It's not about who you're mixing for, even what you're mixing, what the ultimate outcome of it is, whether it's going to sell millions of records or if it's going to sell 500 records. You do the best job that you can.
I got the Stairway to Heaven, and there was so many guitars on it, there was so much production on it. I guess that's where I learned what production was. So I heard all this cool stuff on it, I'm like, wow, that's what I want to do. I want to make stuff that does that.
Some of these mic cables before.
Yeah, right.
That night? Yeah.
I know, he got really good.
You know, it sounds really good when they're on cables. Welcome, everybody, to Apogee Studios here in the beautiful downtown Santa Monica.
All right. Thank you. Well, look at all the people here. It's amazing. All you people came to hear us talk. Hell yeah. Get a life. Jesus Christ.
Gentlemen, you both come from 3 time zones away. New Jersey, Connecticut, New York's right in the middle there, right? Can you talk to me a little bit about what was that New York energy like growing up and music in particular?
I mean, I think the birth of what we did was New York. I mean, that's where the attitude was. That's where the studio scene for us was. I mean, one of the great studios is one that you actually built, Power Station. Not that you all know that, but that's Bob's room that he put together. Probably because all the other studios weren't quite what he liked. Now, for me, the big studios were Electric Lady, Power Station, A&R. These were the classic, this is where it all happened. Media
Unique?
Sound, huh?
What about Unique? Your place.
Yeah, exactly. Where I worked was a toilet on the 7th floor. It became a recording studio. And the elevator smelled like that all the way up. Now, you really had to suck it up in New York because it's, it wasn't glamorous. But the energy was there. Where we learned to cut our teeth was all about the city. And I keep that going here in this fine establishment we call Los Angeles.
Bob, you started out coming as a bass player to New
I
York.
was a bass player, yeah, and just these little bar bands, terrible bar bands. And the last band I was in was doing a demo at a studio called Media Sound in New York on 57th Street. And in the middle of it all, the guitar player started to get intimate with the lead singer's girlfriend, and so that was the end of the band. And so I started hanging around this because we were doing a demo in the studio, and I started hanging around and kept bugging. Just went in there every week and just kept bothering them. Said, "Look, I'll be good at this someday. Trust me." And okay, you're hired. Come in, and I showed up in September and as a runner and. Turned out, I did 2 deliveries and they were looking for me. They said, "Where have you been?" "I've been doing deliveries." And they said, "We don't need any delivery boys. We need an assistant engineer. Get the hell down to Studio A." Okay, this is after 2 hours of working there. And I go in, it's a Duke Ellington session.
That happens a lot today. Yeah.
Not very much.
That's a daily occurrence here.
I was one of the luckiest guys on the planet.
Might be a Duke, not Ellington.
And Chris, 12 years old, your mother worked in
Exactly. What am I going to do with this kid?
Yeah.
Right. He's in the basement with all my equipment, and it doesn't smell like incense down there anymore. My mom's a jazz artist, and it's all because of her. I blame her for everything. It's all her fault, and that's why I'm here. I took Mom's gear to the basement because I didn't want to go to in school, so I decided recording was the best thing to do. So in order for her to get her equipment back next to the piano where her band played was to get me out of there. So she got me a job, took me to a studio her friends ran, and got me to meet the engineer and begged him to hire her son. And Steve Jerome, who was the chief engineer at H&L Studios in Englewood Cliffs back there in the decade I will not mention, hired me for $50 a week. I was 13 years old. So I started assisting right away. Now, assisting then was what me and Bob were doing the other night, wrapping mic cables.
Up here.
Yep.
On the stage.
Well, there's a bin that has them all. We wrapped all the mic cables right here. So I brought it right back to when I was 13. So, and that was the first session.
I tend to do that to people, actually. Make them regret.
Well, you were rapping them, and you inflicted me with guilt. And I saw you rapping them. I didn't see any of your assistants helping. So I said, you know what? I'm not too, my ego's nothing. I can do this. I'm going to lower myself to that level and wrap mic cables because it's important because you respect your studio. So the first thing I learned was how to wrap mic cables. And I wrapped many of my cables and had to redo them all over and over again. But that's how I started. I was an assistant right away.
You are also both musicians, to start off. Can we talk a little bit about how you listen to music in your formative years and listen to music today? Sort of how you breathe, as melody, as groove. What are you first listening for, and how has that changed since those early days in you?
For me, mostly the melody is the first thing that hits me, and then lyric, I think, and then groove.
Then groove. Okay.
Basically, and if it's rock
As a
and
kid-
hard.
As a kid too. Because you listened to a lot of rock when you were a child, right?
I think so. It was all rock music when I was a kid. Not completely. I loved R&B music, but I didn't. It's kind of like I was more focused on the rock music. It wasn't until I got working at Media Sound that R&B became an important thing, because that's mainly we did jingles in the day and R&B records at night. I got a good education about it.
Because when you
You got a real good education. Let's see, what was that song that I found out you did? Good Times by Chic and La Freak and all that? You're right. That was cutting edge. That's why that's like, wow, those R&B records sound way better than the other ones, because he was doing them. Now, musicians, we're all musicians, because I don't think we trust anybody who's not a musician in the studio working with us. But when you work with musicians, they'll smell you out if you're not one. You're like a rat. You're like a spy. So if you don't speak their language, they can tell. Now, because I think that's what's part of our success, probably part of the secret. Do we have success? I don't know, maybe. The secret to the success is the fact that we're so intuitive, because we're musicians, it's all second nature. We're thinking so much further ahead of the song than a normal person, because we're thinking, wow, we could replay all these parts better.
Maybe you could.
Maybe some of them. I don't know. Well, the bass parts at least.
I can do the bass.
I mean, the drums and the drums we can fix because we have our sounds.
Right. That's true.
Isn't that true?
That's probably true.
Now, before you had our
fix some
sounds, weren't you creating sounds with devices that would kind of create your sounds with gates and chambers and shit like that,
We
right?
used to do that.
Before we could actually take the sound and then put it there by some magic moment.
Well, we tried to, back in the 80s, it was always make it bigger, somehow make the drums bigger than they really are. And luckily that doesn't happen so much anymore.
No, now we can do it quicker because we can just load up our samples to help their drum sound.
Well, yeah.
Augment.
But that's
Augment.
That's
help augment.
But that's more making it work with the song. You know what I mean? Back in the 80s, it was, okay, how big can your snare drum be? You know what I'm saying?
The language of music, though, and the communication within the studio. You said they'll smell a rat. How does it help you as an engineer, I suppose? How does it help you sort of, both from that first listen, the first pass, breaking down the song?
I mean, it's
moving on.
It's all about the numbers, right? Right. We've done at least a few thousand mixes at this point, so we're a little bit intuitive about it. But being a musician makes it easier.
What about genres then? We talked earlier about genres and the importance of, while people sometimes associate you with rock projects, you both have amazing variety.
Well,
Does the genres contribute to your overall?
I know for me, being a rock kid, and because I grew up pretty much on British rock and some, bit of Southern rock and West Coast rock, and then being thrown into R&B music. I mean, the first sessions that I did were with Kool and the Gang and Benny King, and people like that, just a lot of R&B stuff. and it was an education. But it was interesting how they related to each other, and I know I brought to later on, because I went back to rock when Power Station started. That became sort of a rock place. It was that combination of the groove of R&B and the bottom end, the bass drum and the bass, combined with the rock stuff that I think really helped me quite a bit and created whatever it was that I had that was successful for me, especially with Chic, because Chic was actually more of a jazz band originally, and they were really poor guys that lived in Hell's Kitchen in New York, and I mean, they told me this when they started, that they were in, Nile Rodgers was actually a friend of Jimi Hendrix. He used to hang out with Hendrix in the Village, and so he was really into rock. Nile was more into jazz, and they're hearing these disco records, and they said, wait a minute, we could do that. I bet we could do that better than them, and they did. And so, and for them, it was similar to what I was doing, was just combining different genres, combining jazz and R&B and rock, and coming up with some new kind of a sound,
And Chris, you're a little country, a little rock and roll.
But you heard drums a certain way, and you were making sure you got your drum sound on no matter whose record it was. Chic, Let's Dance, whatever. You had this idea for the balance, and like, this is how I hear the drums and bass, and like it or leave it, that's what you're getting. And you're going to get used to it, and it's going to become the friggin' norm. Am I right or what? Yeah. So, as far as genres, there's no genre. There's one. I like popular music. They shortened that to pop. People think pop is just top 40. No, I like music that's popular. That means people listen to it. If people don't listen to it, then we have no audience. I want the widest audience. I want breakfast with Mastodon, and I want to have dinner with Dylan Francis. I want to go left to right. I want the four-way stop sign. You know what I'm saying? I want to go from country to rock in one swipper to fader. I don't care. The more twisted and diversified it gets, I want to have an 808 kick to the left and then a steel guitar to the right. I don't care. I want it all day, all night. Keep it coming.
In a general sense, philosophically, a wise man in the film world once told me, at a certain point, all technology is irrelevant. Balzac wrote 80 great novels with a quill pen. Tell me a little bit about your approach to technology on the surface and what it has contributed. Do you agree with that statement, first of all?
It's real simple. I could have another analogy for that. Technology is like a four-way stop sign. You pull up to the stop, let the other guy go first. I don't embrace it until it solidifies. Just because this guy's got some new device that's going to make my life easy, well, I'm not convinced, because what I have is working. And until it stops working, I'm not changing gears just because the software update light comes on. I want to make sure it's tried and true before I flip to it. Doesn't mean I'm opposed to it. I'll test drive it, but I want to say, look, what I have is working. And music is not based on speeds. Sound is based on style. Speed is based on your workflow. So as long as the newest, greatest whiz-bang is going to last a test of at least more than a week.
Yeah, as far as the technology goes, I'm a big fan of whatever works for whoever's working the technology. I mean, it's whatever's comfortable. I mean, I'm comfortable mixing on an SSL analog desk. I mean, other people are really comfortable mixing in the box. It's just whatever you've grown up with, and whatever you're comfortable, whatever gets you the thing that you're trying to get the easiest way, and what's the most fun. I mean, to me, and it's just me because I'm so used to working on a big analog desk. The idea of sitting in front of a computer with a mouse and trying to mix a record that way, it's like, it just kind of, I feel bad for people that have to do that. I mean, I hate to say it, because I mean, I really enjoy the SSL, and what it does, and the way the automation works and everything like that. But it doesn't mean that it's the best way to do it. There's plenty of records that I've heard that have been mixed in the box that sound fantastic, and they have a great feel, and there's, they have depth, they have everything that you need for a great sounding record. So, it's not really about the technology; it's what you're comfortable with.
One point I've encountered over the last 10 years or so, I've talked is we live in an industry, a rather unique technology-based industry where we revere something. Something 70 years old will increase in value. We got to come out of the price point. And at the same time, we have a race to zero in software at various points. Can you give me your opinion on that, sort of the merging of those two worlds? And I know you're going to say it's whatever the song requires, people work their way, but how do you look at our industry that way? The vintage and the emerging, I suppose. Your consoles are vintage at this point, practically, correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously here, if you walk into the control room, we've combined, we have the best modern converters in the world, of course.
Yeah.
And
They're Apogee converters.
and then an old Neve from the 70s. We have an old 1176s and 1178s, all this old stuff, and there's a lot of old and new. It's like whatever works for the song, whatever you're comfortable using, whatever you can get, the thing that you want to get. And people get. I always laugh when people say, "Oh, does that mic have a tube in it, or does that gadget does that Pultec have tubes in it?" Who cares? It's not about the tubes. You know what I mean? It's like I've heard some tube gear that just sounds like crap. In fact, I have this old RCA limiter at home that's just the worst sounding thing in the world, and it's got big glowing tubes, and I like it because it looks cool. But you can have the brand new, the most new transistor, whatever the hell it is, plug-in that sounds amazing.
And Chris, let's talk to that point. You embraced the plug-in world when it became...
Well, I mean, back to what he was saying about the box versus the console, very simply, it's all your fault why I mix it an SSL, because I wanted to be you. And at the time when we were doing this, that was the machine to win the race with. So while you guys are all using one hand, I'm using every finger. So, an SSL is like playing a piano. You can't play a piano with one finger and doing this with a mouse. It takes your whole thing. It takes your whole mind. So that's just our mentality, is we like analog style. Everyone has their own way of going about it, right, with mixing. So it's a personal thing. It's how you want to translate what you hear to what you can get. As far as what you're saying about technology, sound has a speed of slow, which means all character and sound are not time-based and not current-based. So sound and character are all developed with years of old gear or even new gear. But the speed of digital and the clarity of current technology is how we connect the two. The newest technology in digital recording and computer technology helps us connect those two worlds, the old world with the new world, so we can get the great old sound on the great new formats. So you got to look at them in both those ways. We can't replace the old gear. We can emulate it, but we can sure speed up the process of how we get it into a format that we can get it to you.
What happened in terms of emulation then that made you decide to jump in?
Well, because the first plugin sounded like ass, and I wasn't going to let anybody copy my shit with ass.
Yeah.
So, plugins are emulations, and the technology's gotten really good where they can copy them. They can make it sound like tape. They can make it sound like our gear within reason. So you guys and your laptops can feel like not just looking at the meter makes it sound better.
I agree with everything he said, of course. But
Don't have to, though.
sometimes I feel maybe just a little bit bad for people nowadays that are used to, that have only experienced plugins, because a lot of the plugins, they emulate what we used to do, especially some of the more complicated effects that, you'll turn some gadget on that has some kind of crazy echo effect and oh, that's cool. But what was fun back in the old days was actually figuring out how to get tape machines and various gadgets in the studio that weren't designed to do that, getting them to do it. I mean, that was kind of the fun part, and it's a shame because people nowadays, they just kind of, they just click a few clicks on the thing and it opens up and it just does that automatically. And they don't have any idea what
There's
it's actually
no pain
doing.
Involved.
Right.
There's
and
no
the pain
challenge.
Was the fun part.
The pain, the journey's everything. Like the best effect that I tried to copy you did was that freaking bouncing delay on Let's Dance. Gun, 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 gun. It sounded like a freaking ricochet rabbit going off in the distance. I'm like, that wasn't done with a preset on Echo Boy. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have that back then. Okay? There was no preset, right? There was a couple tape machines.
It was a
Friggin',
Studer VC.
right, feeding back into this and doing that. It took like hours to master. And you're like, ooh, I got it. Now it's like, I got it.
Actually, it took
There's no
about a
pain.
minute.
You didn't even earn it. I did real flanging for my assistant. He going, what are you doing with a tape machine? Can you just shut up and watch? Whoa, what's that? That's that sound. Oh my God, like the plug-in. Holy crap, that's like that plug-in.
But it was really fun coming up with this stuff. You know, I mean, think about what the Beatles did. You know, I mean, they were way ahead of us because they were doing that stuff years before we tried to do it.
Well, there's something to be said that when you have limits, you become more creative. When there are limits imposed upon your resources. I mean,
I'm not saying that you're necessarily more creative. I'm just saying it's more fun.
More fun.
That's
Because you got to break through and make
you
something
know what I
happen.
mean? I mean, maybe
figure it
more
out.
creative. That'd be nice to say that, but
Yeah.
I'm not going that far. I'm just saying this was a fun thing to do, be able to do it that way.
better day.
Yeah.
Bob, you said the other day, making and mixing records is different than listening to records. And sometimes people can go too far into their mixing head. Can you expand on that a little bit and explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, well, to start with, I mean, I'll put on a record and I can listen to a song once through. I'm not going to play it twice or, 30 times in a row. But when you're mixing, you can, and you don't really get sick of it because it's a different part of the brain that's doing it. You know, you're actually working on it, and you're not just listening. It's a different, or I should say, it's a different type of listening. And but the thing is to kind of combine those two, and that's one of the challenges of mixing, to be able to sit there and play the thing over and over and over and play little sections of it over and over, but somehow listen to the big picture as well, as if you're sitting in your living room listening to it for the first time. And that's what takes quite a bit of skill and practice in trying to get your head around that, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people get so far into the specific, what does the bass drum sound like? Oh, let's get the perfect bass drum sound. Let's get the perfect guitar sound. And then they're not listening to the whole thing. Like when I'm mixing, I very rarely, I solo things, but just briefly, just to make sure, just to find out exactly what they're doing. But then mixing, I leave everything in all the time and just listening to the relationships between the instruments, which seems to be more important to me than the individual sounds.
How about the reaction when the client walked in and it was David Bowie and it was the first time you hit execute and they heard Let's Dance? What was the first reaction after the drums came in? Don't you remember your first rev playing it for him? Come on, you got to have some kind of inkling to that memory.
Yeah, well, he's,
Blew their fucking doors off, huh?
They're pretty
Come on.
happy. Well, the first one was Modern Love, actually, the first mix.
That was the
And
one
I
that
done
took
it
him
be-
down.
I-
Like a lion with a wildebeest. Boom.
I spent about an hour and a half. The first mix we mixed on the album, we spent about an hour and a half on it. And then Niall and David came in, and they listened to it, and they went, "Oh, okay, next." And that was basically it.
When they don't say a lot means that our vision stays intact. It's when they start saying a lot where it goes right down the
Not
toilet.
necessarily. I have to.
Hey,
thank
can you
Chris.
put it back to how my demo sounded? I really like that.
Sometimes you're right.
Cheap Yamaha reverb that I bought for $100 on
Dude,
eBay.
you're not always right. Sometimes they'll say, no, you're going in the wrong direction. Start over. This is what I want, and it's better. It happens all the time when it's actually better.
Let's extend that because you talk the vision of the band, who you feel like your first loyalty to, and the vision of somebody in a company who walks up and
Oh, you really want to go there, don't you?
go there. Yeah. Let's let Chris start this one.
Well, it's really simple. It's a tough line. That's why, I'm Swiss and my logo is Swiss, because I got to be, everyone wants to put their money in my bank. Doesn't mean I have to agree with them. But, the band has their vision. They got signed because of that. So that's why they put their money in my bank. And then the label comes over and they want it their way. So it's really hard to draw the line. It's really hard because sometimes the label's vision may be better for the band. The band is self-destructive. But you're in the middle. You got chocolate and you got money and watches. And their money. And you got to make them happy. And it's tricky because if you screw up their vision, you're the bad guy. And if you go against the label, you're the bad guy. So you're fired no matter what. The best thing to do is you find the middle ground, you negotiate. And this is what I'm really good at, and I love doing it. I love when there's a shitstorm over here and a shitstorm over here, and I go right down the middle and make them all happy. And they're like, wow, I didn't even know you could combine those two worlds. I mean, your idea, just my idea. That's the world you came into. My way. Your way's kind of there, your way's kind of there, my way's right. So it's tough to find the middle.
And do you win all of those?
I try. I go in there all the way deep. I roll up my sleeves and let Sun Tzu come in and take over. I want this country band to sound like Imagine Dragons, okay? I want this little piano vocal ballad to be EDM. Sure, I can do that. Yeah. Whatever I don't know how you did it, but you did it. I want this song to be played on top 40 radio. It's like Marilyn Manson. Sure, I can thin it out. I can turn everything distorted off. Wow, it'll be the sound of silence.
Well, you do get rehired, so that's good.
That's what I mean. I know. It's still working.
I'm sure with your sound, you can make it sound like the demo, but only your way.
Do you have a way? Is this
I copy him. That's what I've been doing all these years. Jesus, don't you guys figure that part out yet?
That's not true.
How does the process work today? You both mix in your nice sort of home-based environments, and mix mix LA.
Say underwear.
Yeah, in your boxers. Yeah.
No.
The process of approvals and deliveries and everything has changed. You work largely unsupervised, I presume. Do people come in? Or are you sending files out and trying to interpret what they're saying over Skype? I mean, how is it working today?
The ISDN thing is fantastic, but it's expensive, unfortunately. But it's fantastic because it's basically real time, and it's kind of like the guy sitting next to me. Only it's even better because I get to sit in front between the speakers, and so does he. And Bruce sits in between his Yamahas at his place, and if he's with me, then I'm sitting over to the side, and he's sitting in between the speakers, and I have to reach around him for stuff, and then we got him on FaceTime there, and we could see each other, and he can cue me for things, and it's actually really cool. Other than that, sending AACs or MP3s to people is kind of annoying because it takes a long time. They have to download the thing, and then they got to listen to it, and sometimes you don't know. They might have gone out to dinner, and you don't realize it, and you're waiting for hours for them to get back to you. So I'd rather have them in the studio with me, because I actually like talking to the artist, and find out. Like I was saying before, getting into their head and find out what they.
The other thing is you're not sure what they're listening on. I mean, I've heard horror stories from master engineers that they've ripped it into iTunes, and then they're listening off a laptop speaker, and they're trying to make a critical decision.
Right. Yeah. 'Cause sometimes we're streamed as well, and they could be just listening on a computer. Well, where's the bass? I don't hear any bass. Like, yeah, you're listening on a iBook there.
Yeah.
The ISDN thing, like he was saying, was really good because and Bruce is the only guy in the planet that actually cares about that whole cycle of FaceTime, ISDN, communication, because it works really well.
It really works
But
well.
generally, we don't have those kind of luxuries.
No.
Because at the end of the day, they're basically saying how loud is that harmony versus me, or how loud is this rhythm part that I like. They're not listening for sound. You got that worked out for them.
But you're missing body language. You're missing the interplay. You're missing all that.
But sometimes you have no choice because maybe they don't have good body odor.
Yeah.
So you don't want the language in your room with you sticking you up. Now, because if they can't be in the room and they got to do it over to the internet, which I got at least 70%. Well, maybe I get 40% show up, 60% or whatever, and sometimes those 60% are under 5 miles away. They're just in front of their rig, in their shorts, eating green Jell-O, and they don't want to come down because they don't want to shower. They got to work on their next project. But these producers we work with, they're multitasking, so they can sign off from it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I mixed an album for Bryan Adams. He was on tour, and he would sometimes at the hotel, because we'd stream through this thing called Nicecast, which is live streaming.
That works pretty good.
Yeah, and
I got that because of you.
Sometimes the internet wouldn't be so good, and so he'd actually go into the Starbucks downstairs and put it on his headphones, and he'd sit there having a cup of coffee, and then we're on iChat. He just types me messages. You know, a guitar in the second verse should come up a little bit. You know, he's actually mixing a record from Starbucks in Berlin or someplace. You know, and it's pretty cool. And then there was another project, Bare Naked Ladies, where they were all in Toronto. They all have their families, and so they're all in their homes, right? The whole band. And so I have 4 or 5 guys on iChat typing things, and they're listening on Nicecast, and they said they'd never do another album, he'd never mix an album any other way. They had so much fun because they would type something, a suggestion in, and I'd see it and I'd do it, and to them it was like typing commands into their Bob Clearmountain mixing computer.
It's pretty cool.
So you know, it can be good, and it works really well. If you can get a rhythm going like that, it actually works really well. You know,
the best formula I have is when you have 0 time. When they're actually in the lobby on the first listen, that's the best mix ever. Period. I mean, Idiot was like that, and a couple of the other ones were like that because, I mean, you know, catching up on a couple of emails, going, they're going to be here at 3. I got plenty of time. It's now 2:45. Is the mix ready? Oh, what song is it again? So a little. I mean, I'm being dramatic here, but I'm being dramatic with the time frames. But the bottom line is when the clock is ticking and you're watching it go really fast this way, and you're like, holy shit, I got to make a miracle happen with 197 tracks here really fast. And all the stuff that you do that's completely without thought. That's like if you were driving on the freeway at 110 miles an hour, you're changing lanes, you're not looking, you're just going to live. It's a survival thing, and it's so much more exciting.
Yeah,
Bob, comments?
No, I agree. Mixing, you know, getting it done on a deadline, getting it done quickly is very often. I mean, most often, I think those are the best mixes.
More often,
if you
now
just
for us.
you know, if you just like just totally go for it and not think about it, it becomes stream of consciousness where you're just grabbing for stuff and you're grabbing a million EQs and you know, turning things up and turning
I want
things
every
off.
mix every day to be that.
I go,
kind
what's
of
this?
just
What's this thing? Turn that
lunacy
off.
of the excitement.
I don't like this
Because
either.
If it's not that, there's no rush anymore.
At that point, it's a performance. You're on stage. It's a performance. in a way.
Kind of. It's a performance for yourself,
Yeah.
really. But
yeah, but with the music at the end.
yeah.
Let's do one topic that sort of died in our industry a while back. Used to be very hot, surround sound. Bob, you were saying that you have a way of mixing now simultaneous. Everything you do basically surround and
Yeah, I mean, everything
channel.
I've done in the last 10 or 12 years or whatever,
Yeah.
whenever the surround thing started, it was actually my wife Betty that said, you know, you should be mixing surround. I'm like, oh, Christ, are you kidding? Really? and then one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I started thinking about, oh, wait a minute, this SSL I have already has some pretty cool mods. And I figured out some ways to make it so I could mix simultaneously. I could do a surround mix while I was doing the stereo mix, and just not a fold down, discreetly different. So basically, I'm starting with a stereo mix off the pan pots, but then I'm gradually, as I'm going, assigning surround channels on the routing up at the top there, and so it adds maybe 10 minutes to the time, you know, doing the mix, and I really like it. I mean, it's amazing. Sometimes I switch my monitoring system to surround. Oh, let's hear that in surround. It's like, oh, you know, it's like,
How
oh,
you
maybe
doing?
you know, yeah, it's kind of like
everything you've
why
done-
can't everybody hear it like that?
You got a surround version of everything for how far back now?
Since about 2000, I think,
Oh,
2002
that's a cash cow.
or something. You know, and
Right, you're always running surround. You're always running a 7-track pass or
yeah.
something.
And then luckily Universal came to me the other day and they wanted they had the Bob Marley's masters for his Legend album, his greatest hits, and they asked me to do surround mixes. Believe it or not, in this day and age, we thought it was gone, but apparently they put them out on Blu-ray, 96K, 24-bit, and so that's coming out next month. the Legend album in surround, and I can't tell you how much fun that was to mix.
Wow.
And they paid me. What's wrong with that picture? I should have paid that. Don't tell them that. I mean, it was so much fun.
Now, what about some of your early achievements? Would you want to get those masters and go back and do surround, or it'd be impossible to recreate the original mix?
I would. In fact, I mixed the Reckless album for Bryan Adams in surround a few years ago, and that's just coming out too pretty soon. And, and that's really fun too.
So is got my first real snare drum? Is that snare impact the same as the original?
Pretty much. Only it's everywhere.
Now, what about?
Well, it's really just
It's
in the
everywhere.
front. It's really just in the front.
Hey, that was good. You got me good on that one. So did you wait? So let's just, when you're recreating what you did, which is, to me, the hardest thing is to go back and relive the history with the different gear. Okay, you're still driving the same bus. You still got the SSL. It's still going to be the same EQ stuff, but you don't have the same like reverbs and delays and shit.
This is the hard thing. At Power Station, of course, we had a 75-foot stairway that just was just the most magnificent sounding reverb
I think
you've ever
Betty
heard.
wouldn't mind if we just did that right here.
Yeah, right. And that was hard. In fact, I did Avalon as well, which was so much of that stairway. And the Bryan Adams record, the song Heaven, is all that stairway. And that was difficult. You know, I just had a whole bunch of different reverbs, combining them together. And
I walked up in that stairway when I had you on the phone when I called you from Power
Right, you did,
Station.
yeah.
You made me go up there. Hey, go find a chamber. Go find my chamber. And they like blocked off the very top part of the stairs or something?
It's destroyed now, unfortunately.
Because they became a hookah bar or something up there. Anyway, how
Yeah,
they kill history sometimes.
The
but-
fire marshals came in and they said, no, you have to extend this stairway to the roof. The main part of the chamber was the third floor landing to the roof of the building. It was about 18 feet or something like that. And they made them extend the stairs to the roof because there's a penthouse on they had built a penthouse on the roof, and there had to be a second means of egress from there. And it was just, it completely killed it, unfortunately. It really was pretty
But I did find the mic panel that you hand wired.
Yes,
and
I
pointed
did
it out to the
wire.
other goons that worked there who did that. Because they didn't know. Oh, wow, he built the studio. Yeah, dude, way before you were born. You know, sometimes you have to let them know who's done the real work. You know?
This studio, this space wasn't a part of Apogee when they moved in. So the studio, I hope you all got a chance to see, Bob built another one.
I had this thing in my head, actually from the 70s, when I worked on a Kool and the Gang album that they had recorded live. They recorded the basic tracks live, basically, in front of an audience, and then overdubbed it on it as if it was a studio album. It was called Light of Worlds. And I thought, what a great concept to do a studio album, but record the basic tracks, you know, live on a stage with an audience. And so this is kind of designed with that in mind. We it's a recording studio, but we put this stage in. Of course, since then, KCRW came in and said, geez, you know, this would be great for radio shows. And so we added the lights and added the PA. And so now we do nearly once a month, we do a radio show in here with about 100 people or 200 people standing room.
I came in here when you were doing one of those.
Yeah,
You're
I
sitting
do
there
the-
mixing live for these young kids, their stuff, showing them how it's done, because the excitement of actually doing the live thing.
Along those same lines, and sort of wrapping up, both of you said you've noticed sort of more like live musicians in a studio, for lack, not a live album in a studio, but there's more live playing together. I mean, are you seeing that more on the tracks you receive and stuff? How would you?
I don't see bands like he does, but my dream is like yours. Electric Ladyland, that couple of songs on there were like live with an audience, right? With Steve Winwood, at least a couple of the tracks on that
Really?
on Electric Ladyland records. So
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But it wasn't recorded there, though.
right, it was right. It was
that
just
album.
called that, but it was
Yeah.
recorded somewhere with the audience.
Yeah, there was some
I mean,
live stuff.
To me, the ultimate is to be in the control room at the helm and you're cutting a band live, and the shit going down is just ridiculous
Yeah,
because
it's the best
the
thing in the
interplay,
world.
and you'll have like an all-star band up there, and you'll be elbowing the guy next to you going, huh? Did I tell you this is
Right.
going to be amazing, huh?
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
I mean, some of the great sessions I did were the live tracking dates where you see magic transform a demo into a master and the synchronicity of a real band, like with really good players. Yeah. So imagine some of those bands like you work with like the Rolling Stones. Imagine you get them in here.
Yeah,
you just pick up your phone.
Wouldn't that be great?
Look at your call list and see Mick Jagger. Okay.
Hey, Mick.
Hey, you guys in town want to come cut a couple tracks at my place free of charge? Free's a good word with him. He likes free. Could you get Keith on board with this maybe? Because imagine them just coming here and cutting live and having some of their hooligans hanging out, the crew, watching them play live, recording it. And you're like, huh? Did I tell you those guys could play? Check out the drummer. He's over 70. But listen to him hit those things. Listen to him smack those tubs around. Huh? Brown Sugar, they played that song a couple years before you were born. No, but the excitement of the live band thing.
Well, there is something about that. And it's funny because we mix most of the time, and so we don't get to see a lot of that. But it is incredibly exciting when I remember on the Pretenders record that Jimmy Iovine and I did. There were times when there were a couple of tracks on that album that it was that same thing that you just said. We just look at each other, and go, "Whoa, check that! Out. Oh, that's amazing!" You know, and that like these amazing takes. We had some great musicians, you know.
A young person coming up today, that what you want out of him to be your assistant, what does it take? What does it take for it?
I think both of us are going to answer this question one at a time here.
Take it, Chris. You start.
Here's what I think that it is. It's real simple, and I have many kids right now, and I'm trying out new assistants. And the key aspect of all of it is paying attention and watching the ball. Okay, when I was trained, the problem with this generation, I'm not pissing on anyone's parade, is that because of all the distractions, we don't know how to focus and watch what's going on in the room. And in order to be us and do what we do and survive what we've survived, we need you to start and by watching what's going on, pay attention and follow direction. When I was trained, I got beaten down so bad if a mic cable wasn't wrapped or a track sheet wasn't written right, that discipline when you're 15 is why it works now. I need discipline and I need you to be focused and take this shit seriously. You take it seriously, I'm with you all the way.
And you don't ask to leave till the job. You never ask to leave. Even if the
job is never done. You follow through to the finish line, Bob.
Bob, you mentioned that your last 5 assistants, I think, have all been musicians. What does it take to be your assistant?
First of all, musician. I think it's incredibly important because we're dealing with music every day. You know, I don't record voiceovers. That isn't my job. But so that's important because they end up doing a lot of the editing. All the guys that have worked for me are far better at Pro Tools than I am, and then you know everything that he said is absolutely true. I back that up completely, and paying attention to what's going on in the control room, like you know knowing when it's time to make copies for people. You know, especially when you have clients come in. It's not so much anymore, but when you have people in the room, what they want. You know, right down to getting them coffee and stuff like that, and
knowing who they are.
Yeah, but we always Google everybody.
No, not even that. Like I have a guy I'm training. It's just really. I have a guy training. Goes, there's someone out here to see you. Well, who is it? Oh, I didn't know. So it's like really. If you don't have the information, don't even open your mouth. Period. It's like have some knowledge. And like what you're saying about copies, get their emails, find out what they need. Be so far ahead of the game that they can only rely on you from now on.
And they have to be paying attention to exactly what's going on. I had one guy who was really good, but he was a tech. He came from being a tech. He was a musician as well, but he was so used to being a tech that he'd be sitting there in the session looking at the gear and trying to figure out how he could rewire the outboard gear so it would be more efficient or something, you know, and I'd be like, come on, wake up. Look, this guy needs a copy. This guy needs a CD. Or this was a while ago. But, you know, or he needs it put on his thumb drive or whatever it is. But, you know, and he finally, after me yelling at him a couple of times, he got it, you know, and it really is being aware of everything that's going on.
So you both talked about the body of work you have. And do you ever, when you look back over it, are there ever any sort of mixes that stick out that you just wish you could get your hands on again and repair or you know, bring out for the future?
Remember, all comments end up on the internet. Remember that.
It's hard to go back. It's hard to go back because everything's a timestamp. Everything's a moment in time and a vision you had with them, okay? You can't go back, okay? You can't go back and say, oh, I want to remix. I produced this album in the 80s, Fierce Heart. There's these couple of records that the friggin' drums were Fairlight, and they were so loud, the snare drum was just, the drums were so ridiculously loud that I wanted to redo it. No, only go forward. And I want to remix The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis because I listen to it every single fucking day. And I just want to remix it because I can have my own copy of maybe just the drums by themselves. But I will ruin it. I will ruin it. I will butcher it no matter how much I compare it to the original. All I'll be doing is making it sound exactly the same as the original through my rig.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that because I went back and, like I said before, did 5/1 mixes of Reckless for Bryan Adams, and the first thing I thought was I always thought the Run to You had way too much bass, and I think too much delay in the voice or something like that. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll start with a stereo mix, and I'm going to get that to. I'm really going to turn the bass down and not put so much delay, not so much reverb, and I tried to do that, and it just didn't sound right. And I ended up with the same mix that I had.
Right, you actually got
it's just it
A,
had
B,
to
but it's the
sound
same
like
mix.
that. It had to be the same, and I couldn't change it. You know, I just wow, that's weird. As soon as I try to change it, it doesn't sound right.
It's like Whole Lot of Love. If I mix Whole Lot of Love over again, I'm going to mix it exactly the same. The same exact thing.
You did? Did you mix that?
No, if I had to do it. I don't know.
Wow, you are old.
I would be bragging about that a whole lot more and I'd be a whole lot older.
If they would just let me do it, though.
Yeah, right.
All right, sir.
What are 3 of the most fundamentally important qualities to your own personalities that you have, that you feel helped you become the successes that you are today?
As far as mixing,
No, as far as who you are.
Just
who
who
I
you
am.
are as a person. As a person.
This is a mixing question, right?
well, I'd change it all. If I could. Who I am as a person, I don't know, maybe patient, I guess. I would like to think I'm patient. Yeah, I don't know. Jeez.
The 3 qualities that contribute to who you are.
As a mixer.
Yes, exactly.
The 3 qualities that contribute to who you are, which make you successful.
Yes.
That
I
have
think
nothing to do with
patient, be
mixing.
able to adapt to different situations, I think, and trying to be broad-minded. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. Don't know.
I've been trying to be like you for all these years, and that's all I get is those 3 things. Here's the 3 things.
Why
It's
are you
real
trying
simple.
to be like me?
There's 3 things. It's very simple. You know what number 1 is? Confidence. You know what number 2 is? Confidence. You know what number 3 is? Confidence.
Sounds great. Thank you.
I don't have any of that.
Thank you.
Put on your red shoes and dance the blues. Let's dance to the song